I'm going to go straight to Washington, D.C., from where Dr. Mukesh Aghi, who is the President and CEO of US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, joins me live. Dr. Aghi, with Iran's developments reshaping regional dynamics, how do you see these geopolitical shifts influencing India-US trade negotiations? Are we likely to see a recalibration of priorities, perhaps even beyond tariffs?
Well, India is in a very complex situation where you have your biggest trading partner imposing 50% tariff. And then you have two other threats which seems to be lingering. One is the Lindsey Graham bill, which talks about 500% tariff on countries doing business with Russia. And then you have the Iran threat, where the president has said that there could be a 25% additional tariff if you're doing business with Iran. Now, India's trade with Iran is very minimal, roughly around $1.6 billion. So that can be manageable. But US cannot be ignored. And I think, as my understanding goes today, that the discussion on the trade has progressed very well.
That's right.
And now the onus seems to be on part of the US side to be able to move the ball forward. And it's good to see that the new ambassador who just presented his credential will take the lead and try to find a solution. Because I think you can't have a stalemate between India and the US at such stage where you have almost $200 billion of trade getting impacted in some manner. So we will see some kind of a solution coming up. But as far as the Iran goes, I think India can't ignore that because that's not a big fry for India. US is.
But Dr. Aghi, with Trump's new 25% tariffs on Iran-linked trade, I mean, that's what he has said. What steps then should Indian exporters take to safeguard sectors which are tied to particularly the Chabahar port?
Yeah, Chabahar is a slightly different issue here because I think India did get exception for 6 months. And I believe that discussion should continue and that exception should be made for India because India has invested over a couple of $1 billion, and geopolitically, basically, India's access to Central Asia becomes critical. And it is in the interest of the United States that India's trade with Central Asia continues. And the new ambassador, Ambassador Gore, comes from that region. So I think he would be very keen to ensure that there's a support coming to India, so at least the transit trade continues with Central Asia.
You spoke about the new US ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, and of course there was a call that happened between External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which are signaling that there are points of convergences, particularly on economic interests. How do you anticipate such engagements shaping the tone of the trade talks going ahead?
Well, you have, I call, two PowerPoints where India seems to be connected. You have basically the foreign minister, Jaishankar, connecting directly with the Secretary Rubio. And then you have Sergio Gore, who also still maintains the title of Special Assistant to the President and having a direct line to the President. And I think it's interesting, it is in the interest of India that the Sergio Gore's interests and India's interests are converged together. And so you're able to execute from that perspective because you have direct access to the president from the ambassador, whereas you have to go through Rubio, then Rubio goes to the president. So, but overall, I would say the situation is in flux globally. And US is seeing India as a potential partner in this shifting of the global geopolitics itself, what's happening in Venezuela, with Russia,
Yes.
With Europe, and basically what's happening with Greenland, Iran itself. So we are seeing a lot of moving parts. And India becomes critical factor, a partner for the United States in trying to manage those moving parts.
Yes, you have spoken about those developments which happened at the beginning of the year. And Dr. Aghi, we have just entered half of January, and there are, so many months to go. What structural reforms should India and the US then prioritize to insulate our trade relations from these geopolitical shocks?
Well, one thing you have to give credit to the Prime Minister and the government of India. They have not reacted to a lot of statements coming out of Washington, D.C. or by the politicians in the US. They've kept their head down, kept their basically communication to minimal itself.
Yes.
And so so there's no reaction because there's no rebuttal coming out to the rhetoric. So that's number one. So that means India becomes a steady ship when you look at overall scenario in the global turmoil. Second is India has conveyed to the US that it is a trusted partner and it will work with the US as long as the interests are aligned between the two countries. And I think that message continues to go back and forth between Delhi and Washington, D.C. The second aspect is Indian diaspora. You have 5 million Indian Americans, quite active politically in business, community-wise. They are also communicating the same message to the leadership in the US by saying that we are important and we can play a pivotal role. India is critical to us, and India is a trusted partner in every aspect. India is willing to has supported US. Years ago, when the US told India to get away from the Iranian purchased oil, India basically worked with the US and basically weaned itself from Iranian oil. Then it happened in Venezuela, also same thing. So I think India has played the ball very, very rightly and being a good partner with the US. So I think overall, the message which seems to be coming out is that you can depend on India as you move the trade discussion, as you move geopolitically, partnership across the world.
Since you spoke about the role of the Indian diaspora, again the focus will be about how are you seeing these tariff escalations? I mean, that has not been ruled out completely at this point.
Well, I believe that when you look at one is I think we should not look at trade as the only conduit between the two countries. You have defense partnership, you have technology partnership, you have on the academia side now critical mineral partnership. You do have on the diaspora side, and yes, trade is a challenge. But if you look at the big chunk of the trade also seems to have been isolated. So what we are seeing is the impact is taking place more on the small end, like the garment exporters. You look at the jewelry makers, but when you look at the pharma, when you look at the electronic goods, what Apple is exporting, they are isolated. So we need to find a solution and find some exception there. And I
Okay.
think that's where the new ambassador can play a very critical role. Because when you look at from a Washington, D.C. perspective, the trade issue with India probably not is not in the top 10 list at the moment. They're looking at the fires burning in Venezuela, Iran, or Gaza, or Russia itself and Ukraine. So we have to ensure that the India's priority does not get way down in the priority list of the Washington, D.C. And I think that's where the new ambassador can play a very critical role.
All right, Dr. Mukesh Aghi, always a pleasure listening to you and getting your perspective on important issues at these times that we are living in. Thank you so much for speaking to us.